Hey everybody, welcome back to The History Freak. Today I'll be talking about the TV series The Tudors and telling you my 9 big thoughts about the series. So everything said here is just my opinion. I have tried to stay away from spoilers in this video, but if you haven't yet watched the series, I would probably suggest you go and watch it first and then come back here and watch this video. I'm planning on doing a lot more videos reviewing things relating to the Tudors. So make sure you subscribe to this channel to see all of them, as well as our Tudor Queen series and our ranking videos. Okay, let's start talking about the Tudors. So the Tudors was on our screens from 2007 until 2010, and it covered the years 1518 to 1547. Before I even started watching the show back in 2007, I had an image in my mind from everything I was hearing about it. It seemed the reviews were saying it was not historically accurate, it was too sexy, and it was a bit like a soap. Having re-watched the whole series while on lockdown, and then spending quite a lot of time looking online and seeing what people are saying about the show, I do feel a little irked with some of the dismissive views about it. I think there are several reasons why people criticise the show, with issues such as historical inaccuracy, or even too many sex scenes. Ultimately, this is an entertainment show and not a history lecture. Don't get me wrong, as a big history nerd, I of course love to watch historic shows that are close to the truth of what happened. And I can find myself wincing slightly at blatant rewrites of history. But I do also understand, and for the sake of ratings and money, they have to make shows as well as films, books, etc. dramatic and interesting to both the history freaks and the more casual fans. If these projects are not successful, then they won't be made at all. Number 2. More historic than first thought. The show makes no claim to be an accurate portrayal, and they openly say it's historical fiction. But I feel the show is actually not given enough credit for how accurate it is at times. In this rewatch, I was really impressed by how the show followed heaps of events that really happened, some big and some smaller. Bear in mind there are only 38 episodes, covering events over nearly 30 years. Of course they're not going to get to everything, but I actually think the show does a really good job at covering most of the important issues and characters. Particularly the first season really explores the relationship between Henry and Anne and their struggle to marry. In a movie you might get 2 to 3 hours to go into this Tudor world, but in the show we got to spend so much time with these characters and see how they've been interpreted for the show. To me, that was really fun. Number 3. Costumes, sets, music, etc. For sure, one of my favourite things about the show was the attention to detail with costumes, sets, music, etc. The show probably had a smaller budget than a big movie about the Tudors, but I think it looked better than some films. Obviously, I would have loved it if they had filmed in real locations, but they did a great job at building a glamorous looking Tudor world. The costumes were really fun. Henry and his queens always looked amazing. The Tudors loved to dazzle with their clothes and communicate their wealth and power, so I appreciate the effort. The music and dancing was also really fun. In many episodes we see some sort of dance routine, and I am certainly not an expert on Tudor dance and music, but I think it looks really good. I also really love the show's intro music. Number 4. Multi-characters. This is both a good and a bad thing about the show. They would take what happened to more than one person and put it into a single character. Charles Brandon was in every episode of the series, and was always seen doing various projects for the king. In reality, this single man would not have done all of these things, but it makes it a constant for the viewer to use the same person, and it meant we didn't have to constantly deal with new characters every 5 minutes, which I appreciate. The negative is that we missed out on some cool characters from the time. For example, Henry's 2 sisters, Margaret and Mary, were merged into one sister, Margaret. It would have been really good to follow the stories of both women. Having said that, the character Margaret was one of my favourites in the show, despite only being in about 5 episodes. I just wanted more characters and more of this world. Number 5. Age difference. Some of the ages of the characters were a little off, to say the least. When the show begins, Henry is a young man, but in reality, when the show starts with the actual timeline, Henry is quite a bit older. This does not bother me enormously, but I do find it strange in Series 4 when Henry is still a relatively young man while married to his 5th wife, Catherine Howard. He ages a little for his 6th wife, Catherine Parr, but then seems to age about 20 years overnight towards the end of the series. Part of the problem is that many of these characters were meant to be very young when introduced to the show, but they did not seem to age. Princess Mary is an example of being far younger in the show towards the end than the real woman would have been at the time. I think the way the TV show The Crown handled this was really good. When I heard they were recasting with older actors to play the roles on that show, I was initially not excited, but actually I think it worked really well. And although I love the actors in the Tudors, it may have offered something extra to the series to take the same approach. Number 6. Actor performance. As I said in a previous point, I really like the actors in the show, and I feel they did a fantastic job representing these iconic personalities from history. It does not surprise me that some of the cast have gone on to have very successful careers, although many of them had that even before the show. I could talk about many of the performances, but one that I really enjoyed was Cardinal Wolsey. I feel we're really taken on a journey with this great character, from power to ruin, and I appreciated the performance and found myself really feeling bad for him. Number 7. Timelines. One of my least favourite things about the show was timing. So at first this wasn't a problem at all. I actually loved how much time Series 1 dedicated to the relationship between Henry and Anne, as well as Catherine of Aragon, Wolsey and many others. The second series, which is actually my favourite, seemed to speed things up a bit. Series 3 and 4 seem crazy fast, as they just seem to whiz through the remaining 4 queens. It feels like they are rushing to finish the series, instead of really exploring the characters, which is why I really wanted to watch the show in the first place. Number 8. Lack of character development. This kind of follows on from the issue of the series moving too fast. Some characters were really well developed, but others were seen a lot, but not necessarily explored. There are several examples, but one that jumps out to me the most is the character Jane Rochford, who was in many episodes of the series. After a strong start as a background character, she disappears for a bit, but then comes back with a bang in Series 4, finding herself in a heap of trouble. What bothers me about the character is so little attention was paid to explain why this woman behaved the way she did. The show could have had a really intriguing villain, but instead it just threw the character away. Exploring individual characters outside Henry, his wives and a few others could have added so much to the show. The final point is number 9, the continuation of the show and possible prequel. The fact that the series ended after 4 seasons was a real shame to me. I understand from the TV people point of view that the show probably cost a fortune to make and they need to guarantee it will be successful. But I feel it had a huge following and would have continued to be successful even after the character Henry had died. I mean, the show is called The Tudors, not Henry, so why not keep the show going with his 3 children, all who reigned as monarchs, and were developed in the series, especially Mary. I think the show could have gone on for at least 3 more years, and it would have been cool to bring the story of Edward, Jane Grey, as well as continuing with Mary's development, and of course all the drama from Elizabeth's reign. I live in hope that one day they will bring the series back. As well as this, I would have loved to have seen a prequel series, showing the first Tudor king, Henry VII, and all his drama, with the threats to the throne, as well as exploring the story of Arthur and Catherine's relationship that all came before the main series. I know there are other shows out there, but after what they built up here, it seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity. So that's the end on this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd love to know what you enjoyed or maybe didn't enjoy so much about the TV show The Tudors. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and join us for more fun reviews in the future.